already. Okay. So, warm welcome to the Arise conference. It's about learning bites on green and digital skills for the built environment. And I'm really looking forward to inspiring presentations today. We are online. We have audience here in presence, but also online. So thank you all for participating, and we will spend the next 1.5 hours together. I'm Ruth Schagemann. I'm the president of the Architects Council of Europe, and I have the honor to be your master of ceremony throughout this conference today. I studied architecture in Braunschweig and in Stuttgart, that's in Germany, and since over 10 years I'm engaged in European advocacy and activities here at the Architects Council of Europe. So it's about advocating for quality of architecture and the built environment for the profession itself, and in my opinion it's about investing in into the quality of our built environment for everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Marcel Rabonovic. She is the professor and the dean of the Faculty of Architecture here. Thank you for having us in your space, in your room, and giving us the possibility here to be present with our conference. Then I also want to thank Didier Vankunsum. He's professor and vice president of the Professional Practice and International Federation of Landscape Architects, IFLA, and he was the bridge between the Architects Council of Europe and the faculty, and we thank him for his effort at that stage. And it really underlines how excellent and how important it is to cross-connect the professions and the work we do together for the future. The Architects Council of Europe represents, since over 3 decades, the architects in Europe. Today, with our 48 member organizations, we represent over 600,000 architects from 34 countries in Europe. And our objectives are, and now I really forgot here to give you. Our objectives are to be a single voice of architects, and it's about education and the professional standards. It's about professional mobility, and especially also about the architectural quality and sustainability for our built environment. Our interlocutors are, and just to name a few, we work very closely with the European Commission, with the European Parliament, and the European Council. Finally, I would like to highlight some of the ACE actions in 2023, and especially as they are part of the European Years of Skills. On the 20th of April, please schedule this into your diary. We will be in the same auditorium with a conference about skills, and also thank you again for having us here. And it is together in partnership with the European Association of Architectural Education, and you are welcomed and invited to participate at that conference and at that conversation, either online or in presence. The Architects Council is also partner in 2 European-funded projects. Both, in this case, are dedicated to professional upskilling and digital green skills. One is the Bus Go Circular on the specific topic of multifunctional facades and green roofs, and the other project is Arise, and the topic, as you know from the agenda, is about digitalization, including BIM and energy efficient building. So it's about beautiful, sustainable and inclusive built environments, and the European Commission has taken up this task to become climate neutral until 2050 under the Green Deal and the new European Bauhaus. And I want to highlight that it is the nature of the task and the the correspondence to the nature of the architects, landscape architects, urban planners, and interior designers' profession to understand weight and parameters as design forces, even to seek them outright. So it's additionally to digital approaches, it's about design for deconstruction, for reuse, recovery, and valorizing lost and underutilized traditional knowledge in architectural design. And all these ways of thinking open up welcome spaces for action for the European colleagues. So, the architect's practice and also the practices of our fellow colleagues in the other profession are competence units. And in these units, the future is conceived and planned. And they are located everywhere, not only in metropolitan areas, but also in the countryside, in industrial wastelands, simply everywhere. And we as ACE believe that the architects and our fellow colleagues in the other professions, equipped with the right skills, knowledge, and tools, are fundamental to achieve these ambitions that we are set out to go towards. We can make the changing actions and we can spread the word. And we are agents of change, and our offices are competence units. And in this spirit, I really, with further ado, I would like to give you a quick overview over our agenda for today. First of all, we will hear a few words from Professor Marcel Rabinovich. I told it at the beginning, she is the Dean of the faculty here. She will be followed by Stephen Lano, Director from the Flemish Network of Architects, and he will present the continuous professional development actions done by the network. Ms. Amandine Lacorte will present us the Build Up Skills funding framework from the European Commission, because ARISE is a project that has been funded under this framework. And after that, we will listen to Mr. Paul McCormick. He is the project coordinator and will give us an overview over different ARISE projects and events. Anna Moreno, she's the president from Building Smart Italy. She will talk about the ARISE proposal for a European skills framework. Jaap Klok will present ARISE task-based qualifications, followed by a quick pilot on ARISE e-learning unit. And Andrew Hamilton will give us an insight on training and feedback. So looking forward to that. And at the end, as a conclusion, we will also have the opportunity to then answer questions. So looking forward to that. And now I would give the floor to Marcel. Thank you for having us here. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, everyone, for being here, and thank you for all the sponsors who've made this event possible. Thank you, Ruth. I just want to begin by telling you how important those subjects are for the university, and just to pinpoint one element is when our rector was elected, she insisted on appointing a vice rector on sustainable development. Her name is Charline Urbain, and she has developed a series of actions that are crossing the main pillars of the university, which is education, research, and public dispersion. And just to pinpoint a few of them, because there's a lot of things that you can probably find on the website that she's just aiming to do that in her vice rectorate. One of them is a course that is a transdisciplinary course, free for all the students at the ULB, that is talking about those subjects. And I think it's the first time in the history of the ULB that these matters are just taking up and just putting into the field of education. As for myself and for the Faculty of Architecture La Combrorta, it is a matter that has been in the teaching classes for a while now. We have several courses in the, the permanent program, but also we developed a continuous education program with the ULB that offers classes on BIM, that on sustainable architecture, and just showing that these matters are in center of our program. This is what I wanted to share with you right now, and also knowing that we're just in the beginning, I think, in taking up all those matters in our classes, but there is a big awareness that it is important for us to have them as core center of our education classes, because we know that they're going to be asked to the students when they get out, they're going to have to implement that in their practice. So it is important that they learn it from the beginning in school so that they can share it once they get out. Thank you so much, and I think we can now go on with the program.
Thank you, Marcel, for highlighting the importance to have a good base. And with that, I would now give the floor to Steve Leno. Steve is the director of the network, Architecten Vlaanderen. And it is, I learned, it's the largest community of architects in Flanders and Brussels. So I'm really looking forward and to listening what you have to say on the topic of continuous practical development courses for architects in Belgium. Thank you very much.
I hope this is working. I would like to run a short question in Slido. In fact, it's 2 questions because we know we have people online and we want to know you. So the first question is, which city are you joining from today? So where are you? Please just scan the QR code that you can see online, or go to slido.com, and then you need to add in the hashtag digital green skills. So then you can access our voting system and add, where are you? So we know we have people in Brussels. Copenhagen. Okay. Copenhagen, thank you. Dublin, okay. Okay, a lot of people in Brussels. Belfast, okay, nice. Delft, nice. Okay. One more coming. Uzhhorod, thank you very much. Ukraine, thank you very much for being here. Taiwan, welcome, thank you. Okay, so, and we would like one more question before Steve Leno jumps in. So, in maximum of 2 words, write your profession or area of work. So, what do you work with? So, architect, architectural research, architecture, engineer, researcher, architect, okay, okay, nice. A lot of responses, so engineer, okay. We will be using Slido for the following presentations, so keep Slido open, and we would like to hear more from you. Okay, 2 more coming. Consultant, BIM, researcher, network organizations. Okay, thank you very much. Steve, please.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation. I'm going to give a small presentation about who we are at NAV, and also what we do for continuous education. We are the largest community of architects in Flanders. We have about 2,275 architects' offices that are a member. That's about 6,000 architects that are behind there, or about 70% of the market in Flanders that is a member of NAV. What do we do as a professional organization? We do advocacy and lobbying. We do networking, but the most important things that we do are concerned with giving information and advice to our members. That's about 30% of our resources that are dedicated to that part. And then education and training is 50% of the resources of what NAV does every year. What do we do exactly? Well, we have 4 main types of continuous education. We have free information sessions. We have courses that are paid for, workshops, and site visits. Our free sessions are about the most known topics that architects should know about. In Belgium, for instance, a topic that we often touch upon is the mandatory insurance for architects, but it's also about technical topics. We had one about acoustics. I hope that's the right word in English, because there's a new norm in Belgium, etc. So that's open to all our members, and last year we had about 3,000 trainings, individuals that were trained in our free sessions. Then our courses are about a broad range of topics. We have, for instance, courses that go about more the managerial part of running an office. We also have a lot of technical courses. For instance, again, acoustics. Then we had a specific course on an in-depth course on how you can implement it in practice. And also about 2,500 trainings were offered last year. They are also offered on webinar form and on site. Then we have some hand-on workshops, mainly focusing this time on managerial skills, but we want to develop a broader range of workshops. And for instance, BIM is one of the things that we investigate in much sense that we can offer, create a good offering. And our construction visits are also very important for architects. Some are especially about giving inspiration, but in many cases also we're going to look at something that is very new in the industry, and we see it on site how it is implemented. So it inspires architects, but it also learns them about how they can do something in practice. So what is the takeaway for the project? At least that's what I think. Well, if you look at the fact that NAV and like other professional organizations has a voluntary membership, paid membership, but still we can attract 70% of the market. That is something that doesn't happen in many industries, or would be impossible to achieve in many industries. We also have no mandatory framework of continuous education in Belgium, and still we educate about 5,500 architects every year. That's last year, and the years before Corona we were even we had even higher numbers, 7,000, and we're hoping to achieve them again. Now the reason behind this is that in our profession there is an enormous need for information and for training. The building world develops very fast. The 5 years of training that people have are not sufficient even to get started with most of the technical aspects of the profession, and definitely not the other aspects. So architects have a need of information and they are eager to learn, and that's why it's so easy to create a professional association for architects compared to other professions. Now, the takeaway for this project is that if you want to improve the digital and green skills of architects in Europe, that the existing continuous training initiatives are something that is very important to look at. We have an enormous reach to architects every day, and through these existing schemes, the goals of the project could more easily be achieved. So they are at least as important, I think, than the universities that also offer the training. That's all for my presentation.
Your insight, especially showing how important also the continuous practical development or the training is during work time, to not lose contact and continue with the knowledge, and that's important. So thank you for that. Thank you for giving us your insight. And now I will move to the next speaker. It's Amadine Lacorte, and she is a project advisor at the Climate Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency. And if you are asking yourself what kind of agency is that, it is a Brussels-based agency, and they have a very important task because they are assisting the European Commission in the implementation of the EU Green Deal. So we are looking forward to her presentation, and you're highly welcome. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Indeed, it's my pleasure to present you some of the activities we are funding and where the project that is presented today, Arise, is fitting within this broader framework. So maybe a few words about our organizations to start with. So as Ruth said, we are a Brussels-based executive agency, and definitely our main role is to support the European Commission in the implementation of the Green Deal. In doing so, we actually not only support project beneficiaries, but we also try to establish synergies between the different projects, and then most importantly, we try to feed back the lessons from the projects to the policymakers. So for the current programming period, we manage currently a budget of 58 billion euros, and we are growing an agency that should reach 500 staff by the end of the program. On this slide, you can see the programs we are managing. I'm not going to present them in detail. I think what is very important and very relevant for today's discussion is now the LIFE program, because it's where we are now channeling the funding for projects working on sustainable buildings. Nonetheless, we are also managing the legacy of Horizon 2020, where a lot of activities on energy efficient buildings has been funded. So this is to show a bit the history behind these different programs. So we started with Intelligent Energy Europe, then moving on to Horizon 2020, energy efficiency, and we are now really active under the LIFE Clean Energy Transition sub-program. Maybe a few words. I think most of you will know LIFE in terms of nature conservation and climate change adaptation and mitigation. Also circular economy, but it has now a pillar on energy efficiency, on clean energy, if you like. The main target groups are private organizations, NGOs, but also public authorities. So quite a broad range of stakeholders. I would say mostly smaller organizations that are really close to the market. In a nutshell, these are the areas of interventions where we support activities. So first of all, we would like to fund excellent projects supporting the policy framework that enables the clean energy transition. We also support projects ensuring the actual technology rollout that is necessary, and this includes digitalization, new services and business models, and skills. We also support projects working on financial engineering for sustainable energy, We do have as well a range of projects supporting local and regional investment, and as well series of projects developing and supporting the empowerment of citizens. An important initiative that we have been supporting for more than 10 years now is Build Up Skills. So essentially, this initiative has been set up with the main goal to boost the skills of professionals along the building value chain. I think 10 years ago, we already realized how critical this challenge was and still is. So to present it very briefly, what we started doing in 2011 was to support a series of national projects that really lay the foundations, analyze the skills gap and the actual status quo, and develop then a roadmap of training actions. In a second step, we funded still national projects to develop the actual training and qualification schemes. Under Horizon 2020, we expanded a little bit the perspective, so not only looking at blue-collar professionals somehow, but also white-collar professionals, and also funding transnational projects. Interestingly, we also then decided to focus on demand-side measures, so not only the supply of skills, but how to boost the demand for skills and this recognition of skilled professionals. And this was done notably looking at, for example, linking skills and public procurement. Currently under LIFE, we would like to do two things. First of all is to update the national strategies that were developed 10 years ago. And we will, of course, continue to fund training interventions. So far, we have already funded 90 projects, so it's quite a big pipeline. And yeah, for a little bit more than 54 million euros, actually. Very briefly, what are the main impacts of this Build Up Skills initiative? As I said, national skills strategies, updated or new qualification frameworks, also innovative training toolbox. So I think the main added value of these projects is really to test new things, to pilot new methods, and then this is available for scaling up at national level. The training of professionals, the training of trainers, an increased recognition and demand for skills, as I mentioned, and last but not least, feeding back to policy. We know that many of our projects have been feeding into the long-term renovation strategies, for example. This is an overview of the ongoing projects we are funding on the update of the national roadmaps. You can click on the hyperlinks and then you will see the details for each project. I think this is very important work they are doing, and we should have the first results already in a couple of months. So I would invite you to look at these documents. And to conclude, a reminder that we are also running the Build Up portal, which is the main one-stop shop, I would say, for information on energy-efficient buildings. It's very rich. It's full of new articles that are popping up every day, and I think it's a very good source of information. We also have a clean energy newsletter that will update you on the different funding opportunities and also results from the project. So please stay tuned, and I hope that I gave you a good and comprehensive overview, and of course I'm available if there are any questions. Thank you.
Amadine, thank you for giving us this perfect overview, and it really shows nicely. First of all, the construction sector is an important sector if we want to arrive to the climate neutrality until 2050. That's finally recognized, so that's fantastic. And your work really goes from policy framework to empowering the citizens, and that's even more important because the citizens, we don't want to leave them behind, and everyone should be part of it. So thank you for coming, And now I would hand over the floor to Paul McCormack. He has basically the overview, I hope, because he's the project coordinator. You have to facilitate, to keep the people together, keep them engaged, and make sure, I'm sure, that their content is in place at the right time. Looking forward to your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much for such a generous introduction. And the title is The Overview of the ARISE project. I'd like to thank Amandine, who has shown confidence in us over the years, as in all the other projects, and in helping drive the CO2 reduction in construction through digital skills. The ARISE project is a number of different partners drawn from all across Europe, looking at that, providing the skills to take the CO2 out of construction. We're very glad to be hosted here today by the Architect Council Europe here in the university, and being able then to present to you both here in the room and online. The challenge we all face in construction is change is the new normal. How do we deliver the skills and achieve a new skills solution in order to enable the construction sector to take advantage of the skills and the opportunities they need, and a sector that is in great transition. The primary objective of our work is to create a better skills system in order to let the learner engage and then address the challenges of the here and now, stimulating demand and building capacity to adapt and deliver the skills we need for now and for the future. There is a skills gap in a lot of sectors all across the different industries, but especially so in construction. That skills gap is the main barrier to reducing the CO2 footprint of construction. And we need to address that by making sure we have a better and equipped population and team to deliver that. You'll have all seen different things over the years in London when you're in the metro and you get off the train and the big sign says, or the message, mind the gap. And they all look at the gap and they all look to address the gap. But if we look to address the gap in skills, we're not tackling the cause of the problem. The gap is not the problem, it is the system that's causing the gap. And that gap is setting to get wider because we're focused on the gap and not what we need to focus on. And it's delivering the tools and the technologies, the learning pedagogies, and helping close that gap by having a better system, by allowing the learner to engage and industry to engage and benefit from having a better skilled workforce, and empowering the economy that is in transition. Using the digital tools that we have to empower and deliver a digital transformation within the construction sector. We're revolutionising the learning process by changing that face of delivery. No longer is it static, it has to be dynamic, it has to be delivered in time and task-based learning, and giving the learner the recognition and the vocational mobility they need. It is there to inspire demand for the skills, to mobilise the workforce by giving them clear interactions and letting them set their own direction and pace of learning. And with our colleagues in KEA in Copenhagen, how we monetize that by again putting the learner in charge, use gamification, use the accrual of points, and then monetize that with CertCoin based on a blockchain transition to give the learner the opportunity to take the credits or the CPD points they require for their vocational mobility. It's a dynamic system that puts the learner in charge and not the institution in charge. So the learner then can engage at the time they want, in a situation they want, and create a work-life learning balance that gives them the tools and the skills that they need and the industry needs to create a justified and a just transition by moving the learner forward. It's a structured blended learning accreditation, both with certification and CPD points. So it lets the learner choose the destination they need, and it improves access for the vocationally excluded by giving them the access to the tools they require in their own environment to upskill and to move forward. A lot of the white-collar workers are able to use the CPD points, but the blue-collar workers are caught in that vocational void. because they don't have the access to the tools to move forward. With our colleagues in Belfast Met and Technology University Dublin and in ISSO in the Netherlands, along with Building Changes, it's looking at the course content, breaking it down into the title of today's event, digital bites. So the learner can take the piece that they need without having to take the whole piece. Take the piece they need to complete their skills, complete the job, and deliver greener construction. It allows the learner then that choice of recognition and being able to put together the skills jigsaw that suits their job. For too long, skills have not been personalised enough, and therefore it has led to a lack of stimulation, a lack of engagement, and it has caused the gap. We need to address that by personalising the learning, let the learner take charge themselves, and give them access they need through the blended learning and beyond blended learning delivered with Belfast Metropolitan College, with Andrew and Eduardo, so that the learner can engage in a time and a fashion that suits them, not that suits the institution. So the learner's in charge, the learner then can engage. As we then go down that journey of digital energy efficiency, we're able to translate the skills into carbon savings. Diana Laikar, our partner in North Macedonia, is working on how we equate skills equation to energy savings and coming up with that algorithm. And for the first time in these projects, we can then quantify the exact savings of energy through the green skills the worker brings to the workforce. And that leverage then helps the worker, helps the industry, helps the economy, but importantly also helps the environment, because the main goal is to reduce the CO2 footprint of construction, and we're doing that through skills. Skills is the main lever we need. We're working in partnership with the BIM EPA, BIM Energy Performance Alliance Group, projects all across Europe, over 100 partners from 24 different countries, working in these algorithms, but using the tools developed across different projects to reduce that gap of design and build and what has been achieved. The transition is a system that's going to be made for the future. A system then that is fit for a construction sector that's in transition, and allow the channels doing to translate that into CO2 savings. It's a world-class system that will be agile, flexible and responsive, meeting the needs of industry, meeting the needs of society, but importantly meeting the needs of the worker and those being trained. And again, given the vocational skills as a valued and celebrated part of our society. It's achieved by a skills system underpinned by digital tools and pedagogies that deliver the employer's needs and the skills needs. It's a simple process by breaking it down into those digital bites that Larissa talked about earlier, simplifying the skills landscape, bringing it down back to the bare basics, enabling flexible learning, upskilling and relearning, allowing workers to pivot to new green skills while staying in their work. It's making learning accessible by using your mobile phone as the key piece of interaction. It's ensuring that everyone has access to the digital skills, the support and the access they require to do their job properly. It's optimizing that delivery content, but importantly, it stimulates the learner. For too long, the learner's been left on the edges, and it brings the learner into what we call a cycle of engagement, where they're stimulated, they're encouraged, and they keep within that parameters. The innovation is across every step and every work package within the ARISE project, and all of our partners and our associate partners are engaged in that. It's about the new delivery method, the learning accounts and transaction, breaking that down into micro-credentials, micro-accreditation, and the digital bites. It's a matrix of skills maturity, which will provide new qualifications, new jobs, and new mobility. It's professional-based learning content, but brought to a level where people can use it, task and impact-based learning, with the task-based and measure the impact because of the algorithm developed by our partners in North Macedonia. Creating in partnership with different governments and bodies the new regulatory models for skills demand, and using that as the carrot and stick to drive forward. And then it will stimulate, as a result, investments in high energy performance buildings by really starting to reduce our CO2 footprint, improve our climate change and improve our climate challenge, and lead to a greener construction model. In summary, ARISE is focused on the skills system and not just whatever skills are currently in shortage. It's looking at the longitudinal view where we have the opportunity to address this by changing the system. It's creating a better skills system in partnership with the traditional. It's not one or the other, the two have to work in tandem. And it's creating the capacity to adapt and deliver the skills we need for now and for the future. It's that dynamic approach that we need and that we hope that the society will use through the ARISE project. Thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you, Paul, for highlighting how important the digital knowledge and also the digital tools are in this construction field. And it really shows that the digital transformation really goes hand in hand also with the environmental transformation, which is needed, again, for our future and for a better living environment. And especially I really like the idea in this case that it is about the digesting of knowledge. It's not having the whole range of what you can or must learn, but really to get it in small bites, to be able to digest and to implement it in such a way that it is useful for the offices and for all those are working in the construction field. Thank you, Paul, for this enlightenment. Now I would like to continue with Ana Moreno. She has been a senior researcher specialized in capacity building in the energy efficiency and digitalization domains, and is now also the president of Building Smart Italy. And I'm looking forward to your ideas why a European skills framework is so important. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have to say that I started to work on this subject quite a few years ago, even before Amandine was there. My first project was QualiCert project, and it was not yet upskill. So it's something that I really feel important, and I have started when I was a researcher, and I continue now. I like to start with this slide where we know that we have European directives, and European directives are usually implemented in national laws, and we need to develop standards, so European standards that can become also national standards. But in the end, the final decision are among the hands of small enterprises and small municipalities. So that's why it's important to have this kind of system which is very flexible and can be digested bite by bite. The problem is that even if we have this European directive and national laws, there is still a big gap between what is conceived, what is realized, and especially what is during the use of the building. So what we buy for zero energy building, very often they are not. And so there is still we have not reached our goal. Why this? Because there are a lot of competencies needed. Here I just put a few of them as renewable energy, like biomass, wind energy, geothermal energy, and solar energy, or technologies like building envelope, building automation system, air tightness, use of eco-friendly materials. And for each of these technology, we need somebody that knows how to design, how to realize, how to install, how to manage, how to maintain, how to dispose, and how to manage the digital assets, so how to manage the information that we need to keep to maintain the building at the highest performance. European directives foreseen that member states are invited to have public registries for qualified workers, But from the activity that we had done till now, we have seen that only in few countries you have these public registries. So if you want to refurbish the house, you don't know where to find the right people, for instance, for designing a geothermal plant, install and then maintain. And especially for private owners is almost impossible. Usually what you do, you ask to your friend, where can I find a good plumber or a good mechanician? And in the public tenders, usually the competencies are not required, or if they are very general. For instance, they ask for BIM manager, but BIM manager can be anything, because if I am building an autoroute, you need some specific competencies. If you are building an hospital, is something completely different. So again, this was the reason why we decided in our project to identify the competencies related to task, so task-based competencies. And from that, we arrived then to these micro competencies. What is the current offer of competencies? We have some generic qualification in the National Qualification Framework that usually they are not updated to the latest technology. And usually the new competencies are provided by the producers of technologies or materials. And these competencies are not certified. And also the continuing professional development is usually managed at a local time or at a local level, and usually they are not certified. So again, the final user doesn't know where to look for the right competencies to solve their problem. So we believe that RISE is the solution, because we have based our activity on task-based competencies recognition, certified through a blockchain, so it's not auto-referential, is usable by any private or public training center, so we are open, we are inclusive and not exclusive, and usable by any target, both from the demand and from the offer side. This is a general framework that I like to show. So we have sustainable energy skills that where we identify learning outcomes, as well as for the digitalization. And so we can have some qualification scheme built on maturity levels. This qualification scheme can be used both by formal trainings, formal learning through training center, or even by the individual, so it's non-formal training. But both of them, through the blockchain, can provide evidence of this recognition, and so they can be really evident for anybody. And if we work also on the demand side, sorry, this is the offer and this is the demand. Anyway, it will be important in the future that once this system is in place, it can be used in the public procurement, and so became a rating system to recognize the maturity level of companies and people. And sorry, this is the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for giving your perspective on the topic. And what was, I think, a new topic under the first speakers and the presentations, you especially also addressed the circular economy. I think that is the big game changer for the future. We don't think in linear structures, we have to think more in circular dimensions. And therefore also to think about that, we have to work together hand in hand, craftsmanship, engineers, architects, landscape. So really everyone, also the administration, everyone is part, the financial sector is part of it. And I think that is really important if we want to achieve our tasks in the future. So thank you, Anna, for giving us your insight. And now I would move on to, look, yeah, there, super. Thank you, Jaap Kolk, for giving us your insight. And you are an engineer, if I'm correct. So let's say I'm an architect, you're an engineer, but we are friendly to each other. So, and especially you have the project management is at your heart. And yes, you will give us an insight on BIM task-based qualification framework, so I'm sure you will dive more into the depth of the situation in which we are. Thank you very much.
Before you start, I just would like to invite everyone to post their questions to the question box in Slido, so then we can answer by the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm an engineer. That's true. Although I haven't done any engineering in the past 15 years, I think. I've been busy with helping organizations and implementing systems, also with digitalization and with skills. And I hope I can give you some insight on one of the main things we're doing with the RISE. We've built a task-based qualification framework. And that's a mouthful. It sounds very complex, and below ground level it is. But it's below the hood. We're trying to build. We're building a qualification framework to help learners, but also providers of learning materials to make their work easier, but in a structured way. And I would like to take you on a little tour on how we did that. First of all, we built the qualification framework as a matrix to give insight in all the competences you need when dealing with digitalization, but also in the realization that digitalization should fuel other important topics, such as energy efficiency. But it can also be circularity or asset management or quality control, but digitalization at the basis. The matrix of competences we made, the qualification framework, is a structured way to show groups of specialisms, areas of expertise. My colleague, our partner Andrew, will dive deep into that. I will only give you the structure. But what we did was identifying a set of specialisms and breaking them down into task-based components, and breaking these down into ULOs, units of learning outcomes, and those are the smallest pieces you can identify within skills. And I will have a few pictures, illustrations to show it. Because what we did, you can see it here. What we tried to do was to solve the question: how can you connect a professional to microlearning? And that's not an easy task. So we figured, let's start at the professional and the professional has, he does tasks, and these tasks leads eventually to to ULOs. Yeah. I'm having a hard time here. These ULOs we identified are at the basis of our competence framework. You can say a ULO, a unit of learning outcome, is the sum of a competence with skills and knowledge added to it. So with building a framework, we have a huge set of unit of learning outcomes identified. And we can connect these unit of learning outcomes, we can connect them to the tasks, to the subtasks, and eventually to the profession. So each professional has its own unit of learning outcomes he can or can use to upskill himself. So we put it all together, and we broke it down. This is a small example of what we of the qualification framework we made. So you have the specialism of BIM coordination there. We've divided it in a few tasks, divided that in subtasks, connected that to different ULOs, allowing related professions to be able to identify their own upskilling need. I will not go deep into that because Andrew will do that. The main areas of the framework we identified was we had the energy efficiency skills at the base, and had 4 groups of specialisms identified. We start with BIM basics, BIM support, BIM utilization, BIM application, and basically you can say that relates to understanding, enabling, using, and applying digitalization. One thing that allowed us to, with this framework, it allowed us to incorporate maturity, not only skill maturity, which is related to task-based learning, but also different BIM stages, BIM maturity. We are now able, with the qualification framework, to assess whether persons or organizations or teams are on what level of digitalization, and help them achieve a higher level. And we have a few Slido questions embedded. We have the qualification framework. I told you we have 4 main groups of specialisms, and we use that to help with energy efficiency. And what other groups of specialisms do you think could help, could be connected to? I already told circularity, so that was a hint. So I'm expecting here circularity to appear. There are a lot of people typing. So I'm just gonna talk. Yeah. Okay. New and innovative technologies for building sustainability, eco-friendly products, well-being. And eco-friendly products, you can think of bio-based materials there, retrofitting, also a big topic. Life cycle assessments. Life cycle assessment is actually something we have embedded in the framework as part of digitalization skills. And reuse of materials, life cycle cost, sustainability. So no circularity. Economy, I'm going to think that's economy. biodiversity, EPDs. So you're getting the hang of it. That's great. I'll go circular economy. There it is. Thank you. I'm going to take 1 minute of your time to explain in short what we're doing with the qualification framework in the Netherlands right now. We're building a big program in the Netherlands to help upskilling 100,000 workers in digital and green skills. That program is still being built, but at the basis is the qualification framework we had identified. And because the framework has these ULOs as smallest parts, we're able to do a lot of things with them in this program. We're able to load job profiles, structure knowledge products, and we can connect them all to each other, and that's very new and very wanted. So everybody gets what they need instead of getting it all. And this is maybe a bit of complex picture, but it's to illustrate that at the heart of the program is the qualification framework, and we use it to make scans, to monitor, to build communities, and also make compliancy, different toolboxes for compliancy, for skills, for communities, and that way it all connects together. And I think Andrew is next in line. Thank you.
Yep, and yes, true. Andrew is next in line, and thank you for underlining again also the importance of the task-based knowledge that was at the beginning of your, let's say, sum up, and really showing and highlighting how knowledge, skills, and competences go together to then educate and have knowledgeable professionals in the field. So thank you for your effort in that field, and it is, I would say, tailor-made. So it's not something that you just grab, it's really particular for the people who are interested and want to learn and are eager to learn. So thank you, Yep, for that. And now next in line is Andrew. Andrew, you are an architect, and Yep pointed out you will deep dive. So he gave the overview, you will deep dive. Looking forward to that. You have experience in the design field as architect, but you are also highly engaged over the last 10 years with significant experience developing BIM qualifications. So learning from an expert, looking forward to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Don't know about the expert, that's the gentleman in the front row here. We're going to take a look at the how, following on from what Jaap has already mentioned. And I suppose the easy piece for this would be to say it's going to be online and to sit down. I could do a mic drop and walk off. Most of the projects that have come together under the Arise banner have been developing our online platforms as part of previous funded projects. And we had a synergy amongst those projects. We wanted to bring that to the best platform possible. So the platform is the how. I want to ask a few questions to get some feedback as we continue to develop that and as we move to the trials stage. So this is going to be mostly interactive, hopefully. So very quickly, picking up on what Jaap was mentioning in terms of the framework. Framework can be a scary word. It can be something that could put people off. This whole area can put people off as we seek to change things. You know, people don't like change, and particularly digital change can be scary because we're concerned about the data, whether that's switching to online banking, or as I recently did, my first car hire, completely digital, contactless, key app and everything. It's scary for the first time, but when we engage with it, if we do it in a way that's supported and scaffolded, then it can be a good experience and hopefully grow for more experiences for us. So the first question we have, and I'll come to the slide in a moment, is we have this broken down into 5 areas. everything is underpinned by the need for the environmental and the energy efficiencies. That's a given. Anybody who's working in our sector today that doesn't realise this needs to perhaps take a good look at what's happening around about us, whether that's energy problems, whether it's the actual greenhouse and gases and sustainability issues. It's all underpinned by what we do in the built environment. So the first level is understanding BIM basics. What do we actually mean? How do we convert people from the traditional workflows to a digital workflow? And that's the basics. The enabling then is simply helping someone to support them in the role that they do within the industry, within their job day to day. And then hopefully as they gain that initial confidence in what we're trying to cover in terms of the digitalization, they'll then move into applying it, the utilization, and the applying that further and taking it deeper. The framework goes much deeper than this, and that will be published soon on our website. But for now, the question simply is the ARISE framework grouping a valid approach? Yes or no? And there's an option for you if you say no as to what you think it may be. So that's good start, 100%. Oh yes, sorry, just to remind you, if you haven't joined our Slido, the QR code in the corner, or go to slido.com. And nobody is saying no, so we can skip on to the next one. So generally we've got it right on that front. That's good, that's reassuring. What it looks like a little bit deeper, this is just going down one level. We're not going to hold our breath too long and go too deep here. But at the understand stage, it's BIM basics. At the enable, it's accessing that I, the all-important I in the middle of the BIM, the information. How do we access that? Then how do we use that data, whether it's capturing, representing, planning, simulating, costing, controlling, and then the application to the management and the different roles. Okay, so the question in this one is, we didn't put that question in, take that question out. The question there is, have we added too much or too little to the specialisms? So we'll let that one distill down while we go through the rest of the slides here and look at the other aspects. So the specialisms, here they are in detail. So do you see BIM basics as a specialism that should be underpinning all the qualifications? Is it too basic? Is it too simple? Are we all at that level? Has the industry now accepted it? We don't need it? Or is there still a need amongst the industry to bring that basics to the workforce? So we're seeing there, two people have voted, 3. Seems to be a resounding yes. We need to continue that basics level. It is that issue, as I say, about change and dealing with change. The support aspects then are looking at project data management and system administration. So the sharing of the data, the extraction of the data and the information, is that the next stage? So we're assuming here that we've got architects and designers and engineers working away collaboratively, producing this information. Is the next step then making sure that the workforce, the people on the site, the people delivering the projects have these support training skills in place? So is that next, yes or no? I see there a majority of people are agreeing yes. This is all very reassuring for us. Thank you. Was there a no? Oh, I have a no. The person who responded no, would you like to tell us what you think we should be doing? If you're able to. Can we see if they're typing? No, we'll just take that as a no. So this one may be a little bit harder to read. Hopefully you can still see it. In terms of utilization, what we're looking at here is the data capture, the planning, simulation, quantification, the different Ds as we talk about them, prefabrication, operating, maintaining, monitoring, controlling, and extending. Are those the next set of specialisms, or do you think we need to add some more in as we look at utilization? And we're not getting any no's there. General, couple. Now, with these no's coming in, could you give us some feedback? Hopefully I'm doing this right in that. Is that why we're not getting? One participant is typing as we eagerly await. Planning for reuse, okay. That's a fair comment for a retrofit, which I know back in the UK is gaining a lot of momentum, and looking at that. Okay. And BIM application, and the BIM application specialisms are management, project management, coordination, the all-important modeling, engineering and programming. Are there any other specialisms within that that you believe we should be including? And we have one so far with a yes. Nobody else going to vote on that one? One more, but we have no negatives, so we'll proceed and take that as a resounding yes on that front. And finally, but by no means least, the energy efficiency. We're using digital construction as an enabler to improve the energy performance of our buildings. This are the sets here that we're looking at. So it's energy efficiency will cover the BIM basics. There will be energy efficiency and utilization, the application sectors. Is there any other areas or categories that you believe we should be covering within the energy skill set? No votes for this one. Oh. Just taking a bit of time. So we're taking it from the no here that is it part of all of them, that it should be in all those areas and should underpin, as we mentioned at the start when Jaap was talking about the overall framework and what we're doing there within the framework. This is a very quick glimpse of the platform. The platform itself is operational. It's not quite, we'll be pushing out for trials. It's not quite heavily used at the moment. That'll be our next stage as we go to the trials. This is an amalgamation of the various projects we've been involved with. This is the PC screenshot. There is also mobile friendly version within it as well. And we have used Moodle as a platform. One of the things that personally I like about it is that you can get these little booklets. So it is that sort of idea of flicking the page and picking up where you've left off from before. In terms of the learning styles, we're trying to just make sure that we're actually meeting the differentiated learning needs of potential users. I recognize that we've got a small audience today online, but I'm just going to ask if you could vote for your favorite. You'll see an option here. So we have different methodologies that we want to employ. If you could vote for your favorite, most preferred option. This one, is it working? Somebody please tell me that they can actually vote on this one. Have I done it right? So we've got different options. I'm not going to read through them. They're there in front of you. So we're seeing here is a strong preference for problem project-based learning. A bit of a shift here in the figures, but collaborative, cooperative learning, multidisciplinary, action research. So that, as we've already mentioned, we're talking task-based. So that is very much your problem and your project-based learning. So that's a good way. I suppose the advantage there is that you're able to apply the skills directly to scenarios within your work context. In terms of the materials, we have a range of different types of materials there. Could you vote for your favorite material? So we have learning outcomes, skipping ahead quite quickly there. Some of the ones you can see, case studies, videos. Videos come quite far up. Okay, so videos kind of topping the poll there, followed by case studies. Oop, just shifted again. Problem solving, learning outcomes. So that's useful for us as we develop into the trials, because what we'll be doing in the trials now is taking the most popular methods here and using those as part of the test prototype. In terms of the delivery tools, and there's a final question in this one after this. This is perhaps the one that we need to take a little bit more time to look at. So in terms of delivery, BIM sustainability modules. Okay. Any others coming through? So we're looking at web-based and structure-led online narrative videos. So web-based tutorials is leapt up there with sustainable modules. We're seeing coming in behind online and narrative videos. So web-based tutorials very much out in front. And I suppose our question that will come at the end is how do we deliver, what way do we see these web-based tutorials working? And the final way here is that we are looking at some form of recognition at the end of this as a qualification or a micro-credential. How do we test and assess the learning? So there's different methods here. What would be your preferred method? Is it a quiz, is it exam, is it assessments? We have a number jump in at front. So quizzes, continuous assessment, quite good, quite popular. Nobody's looking for exams or homeworks and assignments. Interesting. And the final question, yep, continuous assessment, quizzes coming out on top, which is interesting. Final question I suppose we have is, I remember whenever we started certainly our BIM Cert project journey and some of the other teams that are now on a rise, back 5-6 years ago, this idea of online learning was really novel. 3 years ago, nearly, the college that I teach in, overnight we became a digital institution. We didn't have classrooms, we were all online. I'm very proud of the fact that as a college, we maintained roughly about 95 to 100% of our timetable delivery of classes. We simply switched them online, and our learning continued for our students in a very different environment. So what was very novel 5 years ago is now run-of-the-mill, or is it run-of-the-mill? And I suppose the question here is that since COVID, and this would be innovative, is this idea of online learning the way that we're going forward? I know some of our students had online fatigue. They wanted to get back to the classroom, they wanted to get back to meet their peers and their colleagues. Or have we decided that it's actually quite good that I don't have to travel for 2 hours or an hour to a class? So it's that balance of sustainability in terms of the fuel consumption to learn, as well as the buildings that we're producing. So is the question here, is this idea of 24 access still important? Yes or no? And it's very close. And we're seeing here that we're split, 50-50, okay? So is it still, settling down 60? So that's interesting. And it was just something I brought up yesterday at our partners meeting. You know, do we need to take a bit of a look at this and see, after COVID, what does online blended? And Paul used to always talk about beyond blended. Where is that beyond blended now, and what does that mean for today's teaching and learning? So thank you very much for your participation. It seems unusual not being able to see any faces of the people that are participating in the questionnaire, but thank you very much for that. We welcome your feedback.
Yes. Thank you, Andrew, and especially also with highlighting throughout the questions what are the needs of those who will be then hopefully soon using these bits to develop their knowledge, and also for highlighting how important it is to understand, to enable, to use and to apply. I think these 4 actions are, yes, the fundament of what has been delivered and also developed in Arise. So thank you for that, Andrew. And now we're coming to our questions and answers and closure. And I have to also thank Larissa Rosso for being a co-moderator today. So we both will manage now the questions, and hopefully the answers will come from our speakers today. So we start.
Here we have a first question. Yes.
I have to ask everyone up to the stage.
So the question is about the learning bites. And then the question is, what size? Measure in content or in time? So this is for Arise partners.
We discussed this yesterday, actually just in the very context of the question, is it time or is it content? And I think, personally, as we shared yesterday, I think it's going to be a balance of both. We have to recognize the level that the learner is coming at. So if that is someone completely new to digitalization, I'm not going to use the 3 letters, they're new to digitalization, then that may be a longer time frame. If it's someone who is a qualified architect and it's maybe a transitioning of their skills from 2D CAD and producing drawings 2-dimensionally, to a 3-dimensional workflow, then that time period will be less, and it will also recognize the level that their education is at the moment, that they'll be at a degree level, whereas possibly someone coming in at a sort of site management role might be slightly lower down in that. So the bites are still, I suppose, being measured, if that doesn't sound like I'm avoiding answering the question. But equally, when you look at the depth of the framework, the bites can be just like any meal. We tell our children, cut our food small. So the framework actually allows for those bytes to be reduced in size. And I think it's the end result is more important, and that's where the framework comes in, that there's a recognition that for some people this is going to be a 3-course meal, similar to what we enjoyed in the restaurant here before this call, and for others it's going to be a snack to top up their energy levels and their skill levels within the area of digitalization. So it's not a direct answer, but each learner is going to come from a different area, so we couldn't give a specific answer.
Yes, thank you, Andrew.
As Andrew said, it's where the learner needs to be, and the learner then can take the portion that they require. We had talked a couple of times about this, breaking it down to the time, where a learning bite would be 15 minutes, being the smallest portion, and multiples thereof, and then being able to align those 15 minutes into hour blocks. Those hour blocks then would be directed learning time, which would be aligned to the traditional learning, because we said earlier it's not going to be online learning or traditional, it'll be a hybrid of both. So we need to make sure we operate both. So there has to be a system that's commensurate with current, but allowing for the innovation to come through.
Yes, thank you. And I think what is really important is it's tailor-made. And it is about, yes, really selecting what is needed, the task-based approach. And we have a further question, or is there a further answer here out of our experts? No. Okay, then I would continue with the next question. First of all, congratulations to Steve concerning his interesting presentation. And the question is also directed to you. Do you think that the network, the Flemish Architecture Network, will benefit from the ARISE platform?
Thank you. I think so. We have also a project running. It started now with a few partners. It's a Flemish project on a skills ladder for BIM. I think there's a lot of things that are in common, so we have to look into, we have to get more in touch to see that we don't do the work 2 times. And because we are planning on developing some courses, I think this could be very interesting for us to give, to create the courses in the right way. But you have to dive in it more deeply to understand where we can make the connection.
Okay, thank you. So now we jump to the next question. And I think the next question is to you, Amandine. So it's someone asking if a National Architectural Association could participate in the fundings that you present. Can they participate?
Yes.
Yes. That's it.
Very short
As
answer.
long as they read the call documents and answer all the requirements from the call. But I mean, we have no, let's say we are not, we're very inclusive in terms of the stakeholders that can put forward an application. So usually the call topics require a minimum of 3 beneficiaries from 3 different member states. In some cases it can be 1 beneficiary. So it's important to look at the specific call conditions. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then I have a question directed, I think, to all experts and let's say partners of the ARISE project. And this is really interesting because it's also about CPD. How do you propose to ensure micro-credentials that they are recognized by industry and academia?
Again, it'll be the dual approach. We work very closely with the industry and academia in all our projects. We have the strategy compass that has industry at the core and academia at the next level, and they set the direction for us. We're not developing stuff that's on our own thoughts or going out of line. It's in line with industry demands and academia demands. So it's a parallel path, and those continual discussions, not just with us, but across the European Union with the Commissioner and that, looking to see how they create the new environment that's going to be fit for the new economy and allow the construction sector, especially that's in transition, to make a successful and smooth transition, but importantly a just transition, that with people at the core, that as we move to the new environment, nobody's left behind, and it gives that mobility to all that required.
Yes, and second answer.
I think the other thing, this idea of industry and what industry wants and needs, industry is helping us shape the framework. But as a practitioner previously in an office, the main thing I want to make sure is the competency of my staff, that they have an understanding to do the particular task or job. The awarding organisations, be that a university that's self-awarding or be that an educational body that we're working with, they will have an assessment criteria to gain check that someone is capable. So I suppose the two, whilst they do seem different, they are very mutually beneficial, or they can sit quite comfortably together. The difficulty comes back again to the bite size, and where an awarding organisation may ask for multiple competencies. And that's where we hope the bite size actually encourages mobility amongst the workforce, that if they complete a task and they have a sense of achievement and a sense that, hey, I can actually do this, that they do the next bite and the next bite. So before we know it, there's maybe more BIM coordinators or BIM managers or people moving through and that mobility for workforce. And then with it recognised across a number of countries, it allows for mobility amongst countries as well. So the two sit quite comfortably together.
Yeah. I also like to stress that in nowhere we are trying to be to create competition between what's already there. We're trying to add to it, and we're trying to connect the supply and the demand side of skills. Because as an example, I was looking the other day to what do I need to do to become a BIM manager. I can go to a software vendor, and for 500 euros, I can become a software. I can become a BIM manager, but then I can go to a post-university educational institution, and I pay 5,000 euros for the same. But is it the same? For me, there's no way to compare these two trainings. So we're trying to add to that to help these training suppliers, by giving them a way to distinguish themselves between each other, and also helping them to see the blind spots in their training, by providing the framework which helps them hopefully to see how they can improve their learning materials and their courses.
Yes, thank you for these insights. And maybe just to be a bit specific there, it's not quite a question, but nevertheless, will there be credits also for these actions taken? Because then the next follow-up question is it recognized in whole Europe? No, so are there thoughts on that topic?
One of the biggest challenges we face, and our colleague Anna Morena there, on the benchmark work package 2, it's not a level playing field across Europe. There are different structures, there are different recognition, there are different certificates, and that's what the European Union is struggling with. How do they create that level playing field? So somebody with an accreditation coming from Bulgaria can work in England, or somebody coming from Latvia can get a job in Germany, and their recognition is there. Because of all the different academic progression and units, that creates confusion, it creates a grey area and limits mobility, and also is a barrier to using the skills within the industry. We're looking to remove those barriers by bringing a transparency to it through the micro-credentials, the micro-credits, and have them aligned to traditional units, so therefore it's an international language. The same as anybody travelling across Europe, the common language in the European programmes in English, we would like the common language and skills to be micro-credentials, micro-units, and have that digital accreditation that people then can use. They know exactly what it's worth, they'll be able to know it for the job, and then have that mobility to go forward.
Yes, thank you, Paul, for giving this important insight, because I think that's a topic that really has to be dwelled, and the Architects Council of Europe is working on the facilitation of it. For the architects, it's a bit easier because we have common recognition, and so it might be easier than for the engineers and for the craftsmen. So I think this is really important. And then there is another question. Will there be a training for building managers that or consultants that are interpreting BMS, BAS outputs, or is it covered in basic? So someone is interested in what's the content.
The leader of the work package and training, Andrew Hamilton, would be the right man to answer that one.
It would be covered in the second framework, which I've forgotten my mind. I just had a mind blank, but it's the section of interpretation of the data. It's covered in the second step of the framework. That's right. Our framework creator.
Yeah, that's right.
So we have another question, and it's about the flexibility. So do you think the learning path flexibility could be applied to universities? I guess it comes from this place that universities might be a bit slow in change. So what do you think?
As Andrew referred to earlier, it's that change. We've all come out of 2 years of COVID, and the world has changed beyond all recognition. Those economies that are going to be successful are those that embrace the change and deliver it and deploy it. And it's no different in academia, where they need to look at what is needed for the new economy. As we move through the fourth industrial revolution, we need the skills to power that, because the real power, unlike the previous industrial revolutions, it's people that are going to power the fourth industrial revolution. And with the skills, the people then can deliver that. So therefore, the older traditional systems, academia, degrees, units and that, need to be flexible enough to mirror the change and to recognise the largest part of society, the blue-collar workers who have the skills but not the paperwork to recognise the skills. How do we bring mobility to that section? And it's that vocational training is the massive bit that we also need to tackle. It can't be just degree students and labourers and nothing in between. We need to find a way of bridging both to allow people to go into what I said earlier, that circularity of engagement, where they get started and they can continue and upskill. No longer is it sufficient in life to do one course and then work without relearning or retraining. It needs to be part of your everyday life.
Yes, thank you. And now it's 4 o'clock. We still have one question. I would say we do that question. I think it's interesting because our education science partners also contributing to Arise. That might be a very easy question to answer.
As I said earlier, we have a lot of partners, and it's within the strategic compass. We bring all of industry with us. They sit at the steering committee, and academia. They help set the direction. Our magnetic north is not what we think or what you think, it's what industry needs and we can deliver. And that sets the direction of travel. It helps us, it helps the partners in IEC in North Macedonia, IBIMI in Italy, KEA in Copenhagen, and ourselves in Belfast and the partners in the Netherlands, how we then set the trajectory. It allows us to navigate through the obstacles that are there and navigate into clear water to deliver the skills the worker needs. We need then to bring that in a format that is suitable for them and that they're able to access and be stimulated and engage without the barriers and without the traditional hurdles and without, as Andrew said earlier on, that cognitive dissonance of digitalisation. We're delivering the skills in the mobile phone, everybody's comfortable with it, everybody's competent with it, so therefore the engagement of the interface is open to all, and that's how we'll be able to move it forward.
Yes, thank you very much for making it really possible for everyone to participate. And I think maybe for the future we didn't have the opportunity to think about it, but to maybe further think, it's also, let's say, an obligation of the offices, of the industry itself, with their companies, to also enable their people to participate in these formats and to get their knowledge so that they don't have to take free time, so it is paid and it should be part of their working time, let's say so. If we can engage in that, I'm sure we're heading in the right direction. Thank you to everyone. Thank you for everyone participating online, for the questions, to our experts going through the whole project. I have to thank Larissa Rosso for being the project manager here, maintaining everything together and organizing this fantastic conference. I learned a lot and hope we will continue learning. And And thank you for the technicians for making this possible and making such a smooth conference. So thank you also to our great hosts here in this wonderful architecture and engineering piece of work. Looking forward seeing you at another time in another field. Thank you very much.